Hello, welcome to Liz Rocks and Stuff. I'm Liz, and today we are going to grow crystals on rocks like this. Or I'm hoping more like this. So the idea for this came from initially a video I saw on Skill Tree where he was growing crystals on a skull. And I started doing some research into how this works and found that there's actually several ways that you can do this. And I thought it'd be fun to kind of do an experiment and see what we can get. So I did these two both with borax, but you can use Epsom salt, kosher salt, well, table salt, any kind of salt. You can use baking soda. There's a lot of different things you can use. And the basic premise is you dissolve your solid in water, hot water, and then you just put this in that for 8 to 24 hours until you get the result that you're looking for. Now, I will say that, like I said, both of these were done with borax, but the process I used was slightly different, which is why they look a little bit different. So I'm going to go over what I did to achieve these two different results, and then we will conduct our own experiment. So let me zoom in a bit so that you can kind of see what we're dealing with a little bit better. So this is the first one that I did. You can see that the crystals are fairly small, they are very shiny, they reflect a lot of light. I like the look of this. Now this was done in just a regular drinking glass. I dyed the water like a teal color because supposedly the crystals will take the color of the water. Now these crystals are white. And that could partially be because they're on a black rock, but this was done with water from my instant hot water. It was done in a regular drinking glass, and I just covered the glass with a towel. So this cooled off relatively quickly and produced these small little crystals. Now I did it again with borax again, and this one I did in a mason jar with boiling water. So my water was hotter to start out with, and it was in a container that's a little bit thicker, so held the heat a little bit better. And I wrapped this mason jar in a flannel towel and covered it up. So this cooled off much slower, and it produced these larger crystals. Now that could also be because this rock isn't as smooth. If you notice, the surfaces of these two rocks is very different. One is very smooth, one is very rough, so that could have something to do with it as well. I will say that it's really easy to get these crystals off and to redo the experiment if you don't like it. So they're just made out of, in this case, borax. So run it under hot water. That's why I went ahead and left these in here, because to show you kind of that's what the bottom of your container will look like when you're done. Everything gets coated in these crystals. So it's easy to clean it up. Basically, I'm just going to take this over to my instant hot water, let some hot water sit in it for a minute, and then it'll come right out. So to get started, I am going to actually run 3 experiments, possibly 4. Really maybe 5. So I'm going to take this out of the way, and I've got my three mason jars. I have 3 rocks. These are relatively similar. This one has a little bit of a different surface to it. It's a little more uneven. But yeah, so I've got 3 rocks. I'm going to use my instant hot water again, because that's just easier for me where I am. I'm going to do one with Epsom salt, one with borax, one with regular table salt, and then I might try one where I mix all of those together. And then also, when I was talking to my mom about this, she sent me a link on how you can make geodes in eggshells using this process. And I thought that was kind of neat. So my final one is that I am going to use this big vase to put this cute little, I think it's a candle holder in. And I'm going to see if I can grow crystals all in and around and on that. Now this sits all the way down in there. If I put a popsicle stick, the popsicle stick is basically there just to keep this handle from falling in. It's taped because there are these little beads that hang down on the side, and I don't want those to get covered. But it does touch the bottom, so I am somewhat anticipating that this is gonna stick to the bottom. But, you know, we'll see. I do have another one of these that I might try just filling up with this solution to coat the inside and not coat the outside, and see how that looks. So I've got a lot of things that I'm gonna try here. But the first thing that we need to do, I'm gonna move this one out of the way, is attach some string to these rocks. So I'm gonna sort of look at them, decide which side do I want to grow the crystals on. That's gonna be based partly on which side sort of sits flatter. So like this rock is fairly stable this way, not very stable that way. So I'm gonna grow the crystals on this side, which means I want to attach my string to this side. Now the best way to attach this string is to use a glue that is not heat activated. In my case today, I have found that using UV resin works really well. It doesn't melt in the heat of the water, the steam, and it holds and it comes off the rocks really easily. It literally just pops right off. So I have my UV resin here. I need to put these a little bit closer together. So I'm just going to put a couple dots of my resin, making sure I've got the string and the rock covered. And I don't have a fancy flashlight curing thingy. I've got one of these ones that's used for like curing fingernails. So that's just going to take a minute. And while that's curing, I'm going to start getting everything else ready. Now, the solution is, I'll post some links to the sites that I used for this in the description. But you basically, if you're going to do a cup of water, you want half a cup of whatever your solid is. So these, I'm going to put about a cup of water somewhere in here. So yeah, this is a cup of water right here. That's what I'm going for. So I'm going to put half a cup of whatever each of these is in the jar. And I don't have a funnel or anything, so this is just going to be a little bit messy. So that's half a cup of my Epsom salts. Half a cup of borax, and hopefully I have half a cup of salt. I don't, but that's okay. That's probably closer to about 1/3 of a cup. Now we're not going to use the lids. We're gonna, basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a towel on the top of them. That's to help keep them from cooling off too quickly. And I also, so see, these are now cured. So it doesn't take very long for that to cure, at least such a small dot of it. So now what I need to do now is put my water in these. And what I've done before, I'm not going to go full all the way up to a cup here because I want to be mindful that that doesn't have as much solution in it. All right. So this is my salt, and I'm just you want to stir it until you've dissolved as much as you can. All right. Don't think any more of that is going to get dissolved off. So I have some sticks. I'm going to put a quick knot in this string. Use a popsicle stick. All right, and that's not touching, and I don't have any more length I can put on my string, so I'm going to go ahead and add some more water. And actually what just happened is the epoxy popped off. So that has not happened for me before. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this off. I'm going to stir this up a bit more since I added some more water to it. Now, from my understanding, the color of your liquid is going to dictate the color of your crystals, but also the color of, my cat has come down to say hello. The color of the surface that you're putting the crystals on also is affected by, affects the color of the crystals. So I'm going to put a little bit more epoxy on here. For this one, I'm going to just go ahead and coat the whole thing. And then let that run for a minute. And in the meantime, I'm just going to put this off to the side and put a towel on the top so that that doesn't cool off too quickly. Now moving on, we're going to do the rest of these. So if you want to have colored crystals, you can use food coloring or the base of whatever you are using. So in the instance of my candle holder, because that is pink, in theory, the crystals will look pink because they're going to be clear on the background of, with the background of the pink. So now I'm going to tie a knot in this one. Using, these are silicone popsicle sticks. So let's see if I can kind of show you that the rock is just sitting on the surface of that solution. It's not down in it. It's just sort of sitting on the top. I would like that to be a little more covered, so I'm going to add just a tiny bit of water. There we go. And this has finished, so that's now done. So we're going to go ahead and suspend this back into the salt. And now cover those two. Basically, you want to keep them covered as much as possible because that's going to stop the heat from escaping, and it's going to get them to cool off just a little bit slower. Now remember, with my first experiment, I had it cool off a little bit faster, and the crystals were smaller. And then with my second experiment, I wrapped them in flannel and did everything, started with hotter water, and made sure that I did everything I could to keep it from cooling off too quickly. And that ended up with larger crystals. But again, that could also be affected by the surface, since that has a fairly uneven surface to it. Now this is the Epsom salt. Again, if your solution is relatively clear, like on my table salt, then your crystals should be clear and they'll pick up the color of whatever the base is. The Borax website actually recommended using pipe cleaner that you've bent into shape. And but there was another website I saw that my mom sent to me with the idea of using eggs, and they suggested just using food coloring. So that one is suspended in its solution right there. I'm going to get another towel. And so now all of these are covered, and they are going to sit, I mean, depending on, you know, the look you're going for, it can be anywhere between 8 and 12 to 24 hours. What I would recommend doing is checking on them every 8 hours or so, just to see how they're doing. Now on this one, I've checked ahead of time, and I'll need about 4 cups of water to cover that, which means I need 2 cups of borax. So get my borax. Maybe I'll just start with 1 cup. I want this to be fairly clear, and the borax solution tends to be very opaque because I guess the laundry soap doesn't dissolve as quickly. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water in there for now so that I can sort of dissolve all of this. Then I'm going with clear. With my 2 samples, this first one that I did, I actually colored teal, and this second one I actually used red. And in neither case did the crystals really pick up that color. So I'm electing not to do that this time. So now I'm going to put. Now I want this to be inside too, so I'm going to put some of that solution inside, and as you can see, it's not quite there. So I want this to be covered completely. So I'm going to put a little more water. All right, now that was quite a bit of water that I had to do in there, so I'm going to do a quick stir just to try and dissolve some more of these solids. All right, so putting that back in, making sure I've got solution inside the candle holder as well as out. And now I'm just going to cover this up, and I'm going to leave it there to sit for, I'm going to sit it for 24 hours. You can also come and check every 8 hours or so. Maybe I'll do some checkups today and see how it's doing after about 8 hours, but I'll come back and do the final check and the showing what they look like in 24 hours. Okay, these have had 24 hours to sit and work their magic and do their thing. And I have had 24 hours to reread the instructions on how it's supposed to work. So the way I did this yesterday absolutely is how you do this with borax. You create the solution, you suspend an object in it, let it wait 24 hours, and the crystals will build up on that object, assuming you just let it cool down naturally. The salts, so the epsom salt and the table salt, I haven't looked at these, but I'm going to assume that they've not done anything, because the way that you grow crystals with the salts is by pouring that solution into another container and then letting the water evaporate out of it. So to that end, I'm gonna have more of these little candle holders. So I'm going to be putting my salt solution into those and then letting them slowly evaporate. I'm gonna assume it's gonna take at least like 3 or 4 weeks to let the water fully slowly evaporate out of them. So I'm gonna just put a short out or something later once those are all done to show what these end up looking like. So we're gonna start with the Epsom salts. I'm gonna, like I said, I haven't looked at these, but I'm gonna assume it hasn't done anything. And correct, nothing. So there's no Nothing on the rock. There is nothing in the container. So I'm going to fill up this. And then we're going to let that sit. And supposedly as the water evaporates, it will leave the crystals behind. So I'll show kind of what that looks like once that's done. Moving on to the table salt. Again, same thing. There's nothing on that rock. Nothing. There's some undissolved salt in the bottom of the jar, but that's it. So we're going to pour this solution into there, and then those are going to get set aside. I'm just going to put them underneath my little overhang here, and I'll check on them in a few weeks to see how they're doing. I'm going to save this for last because I'm really curious how that turned out. And like I said, I haven't looked at the other one, so let's pull out this borax rock and see what it looks like. So that looks a lot different. It's very cloudy. Well, not very cloudy, but there's definitely crystals in there. Pull the rock out, and it's very delicate. But yeah, that actually, there's some crystals on the rock, and it's a little bit hard to see now. But what you want to do is let this sort of dry. So I am going to go ahead and try to get the epoxy off without breaking these crystals off. And the crystals actually kind of grew over the epoxy. But I'm going to put that down and let that, so I'm going to put that down right there, let that dry. And yeah, you can see there's crystals in the jar. That comes out really easily. I just put more hot water in it and then kind of stir it up a little bit and just let that go. So coming back out, let's check on the candle holder that we put in here. I'm actually a little bit concerned that it's stuck to the bottom of the vase because the candle holder actually was almost touching the bottom. That's kind of interesting. I don't think it did quite what I thought it was going to do. That's interesting that there's a coating on this glass. These are not expensive candle holders by any means. So some of the color came off. But you can kind of see that it actually does have crystals on the outside, and you can see the coating coming off right here, but there's actually also crystals on the inside, and there are crystals that are keeping the handle from moving anymore. So we're going to take this tape off and see what it looks like. Now, I wasn't sure what I was going for with this. I just was like, hey, I have this thing. Let's see what it looks like if we can get some crystals to grow in the middle of it. And we did. But it's very interesting. But you can also see there's a lot of crystals that have gathered where these dangly bits are supposed to be. So I got to kind of break those off a little bit. And now that works. Now the things dangle. And yeah, it's kind of pretty. I don't know what I'm going to do with this other than maybe sit it on the shelf. But yeah. So 2 successes with the borax, and then two further experiments that I'm going to have to go for. So yeah, if you want to grow crystals in 24 hours, use borax. If you want to just sort of see things grow, or you want to grow something in another object, then you can use borax for that as well, or you can use any type of salt. Dissolve that in a solution and put it in your object and let the water evaporate. So I will, I might come back once these items have dried fully so you can see really what they look like. And other than that, I will do some update videos with the two that I'm going to be doing the evaporating in. But thanks for this. Thanks for watching this video. Hope it wasn't a little too weird and disjointed. This is a new style of video for me. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for watching. Bye.